Alastair, might just ask you first about Jack Darling and how he's tracking. Was out there this morning?
Yeah, well, it was obviously pretty significant injuries as it turned out, and enormously courageous for him to come back onto the field. Our docs did a great job to give him the opportunity to be able to do that, and his courage to be able to accept that it could be wrapped up and get himself back out on the ground and contribute to our win was really important for us. Needless to say, he's had that stitched up, and now he hasn't been able to do much training yet because with the stitches, he's unable for it to get too moist with sweating and that sort of stuff. So he'll be a test. We'll select him tonight to play and hope that he gets up, but that decision might be made an hour before the game. So we're uncertain. It's such an uncommon injury, and just an accident that happened in the game. It's unfortunate, but he's handled in the right manner. Our docs have done a great job, and he gives himself a chance to play, but we won't know until about an hour before, more than likely.
As you say, very brave of him to make the decision to be able to go back out there as well. Is it a case of if it were up to him this weekend, I know pending how he pulls up on game day, but if it were up to him, would he be playing?
Yeah, he wants to play. He said that right from the get-go, even before he got it stitched up last week. But we'll just have to wait and see what his function is like, and more importantly, whether the surgeon and the docs think that him doing too much exercise or getting a knock on it might have the stitches bust. So we just need to be mindful of that. He'll play with some sort of guard if he does play, but we'll cross that probably on Saturday morning.
You said you wanted to see growth from where you were 2 months ago when you played. Oh my God, how have I forgotten? Carlton, that's what it was. You would have seen that on the weekend. How did you review that game?
Yeah. Well, it's very, very similar in terms of the last time we played Hawthorn, we just got absolutely walloped in the last game of the year, and we didn't have much to play for. They had everything to play for because they were right on the eve of finals, and we just fell away so badly. But we're really keen, just like we were last week against Carlton, to see how far we've progressed since that time, and particularly the last 8 weeks. We know we had to do a lot of work on stiffening up our defence, and we're just leaking far too many goals in the early part of this season, and indeed the last 2 games last year, Western Bulldogs and Hawthorn, we just got belted in that space. So we did some work on it over the summer, nowhere near enough it seems, because we weren't good enough in the first 6 rounds of the season, but in the last 7 or 8 games we have been a lot stronger in that space, and it's had us in game. So the real test for us will be against a really, really good opponent this week, whether we can hold up defensively once again.
Just on the Carlton win, you mentioned it was a couple of months before that you lost by 80+. What does it tell you about the group to respond that way to get the win in that period of time?
Yeah, we've always been really, really receptive, but to wanting to learn, and but we just need to change a few things and put a greater emphasis on. There's obviously 3 phases of the game, and our stoppage and contest work has always been reasonably strong, but our defensive action stuff was an area that we just needed to put a lot more work into and really try to bed that down nearly as a priority above the other 2 areas of the game. So that's what we've done over the last 6 or 8 weeks, and we've seen significant improvement in that space. Now we need to try to hold on to the stuff that we're doing in that space and work on the other parts of our game as well.
People talk about learning to win in a way. Obviously, the Kangaroos haven't won so many games over recent times, but is that the part you feel as though they're learning to finish off and win some of these games now?
Well, just being in close games helps with that. We were just not in games at all last year. The first half of last year, I don't think at 3/4 time we were a chance to win any game in the first 11 games of the season last year, and that got a little bit better in the second half of the season, then fell away really, really badly in the last couple of games. And then we're in games, but then fell away out of them late in the early part of the season and had a couple of blowouts. The Gold Coast game, gather round, and also the Carlton game. So that was when we need to really put some pretty urgent attention to our defensive action, and that's what we've been able to do. And since then, we've been in every game at 3/4 time, and only one of those is sort of blown out to a margin that didn't risk much of a chance, and that was the Collingwood game. But they're on top of the ladder for a reason. They're a really, really good side, experienced, know how to handle close games. But every other game we've been in the contest at three-quarter time, and some of those games we've been able to go on and win. Another one we drew with another really, really good side in Brisbane, and 3 or 4 of them we've just lost by close margins. So I think that shows us that that we're certainly more competitive in games, and we're just slowly turning it around to win some of those games, which we were unable to do in previous years.
A lot of players, young players stepping up this year, and obviously more cohesion in the side. I wanted to ask you about Tristan Xerri. What sort of impact and how important is he to your team?
Yeah, well, he's been in stellar form, and his form last year was really, really strong as well. And he's just such an important player in the middle of the ground for us, and not just his ruck work, but his follow-up work. He's high for clearances and high for tackles and pressure. So he nearly becomes another midfielder for you once the ball hits the ground. So that's enormously valuable when you can get that out of your big guys. But we mentioned Jack Darling before. He's been terrific in that space too when Big X has been off the ground on interchange. So that's a really valuable part, and that's why we've been considered one of the better stoppage teams in the competition throughout the course of the year. But we like to think that I think he's played about 60 or 70 games of AFL footy, Big X. For a lot of the rucks, it takes a long time for them to learn their craft, and now he's starting to reap the benefits of a really, really long apprenticeship, but he's starting to get some reward for a lot of hard work over a long period of time.
Do you just want on the result against Hawthorn last year, as you touched on earlier, do you lean on that a little bit in terms of asking your players and saying, look, this happened last time, what can we learn about it this time? How far have you come?
Well, I think it's just really, it's not a big thing. It wasn't. We didn't play on it too much with the Carlton stuff, other than say, listen, we got pulled apart pretty significantly against Carlton last time. How much have we progressed our defensive action since then? It's the same with the Hawthorn side. We got pulled apart by them when we played them in the last game of last year, and we've changed some things to both personnel and our and the way that we defend, and let's see how far we've been able to progress in that period of time.